Hi, I'm Keith. Mark's behind the camera, and this is the finish of the of the Nuthatch that we've been painting. Hopefully you've seen part 1 and 2, because that'll make it a little easier to explain what I'm doing. We have finished up, well, we haven't finished, but we have done quite a bit of the background, and we've worked on the tree in the first 2 episodes, and now we're getting ready to actually do the bird. So I'm going to begin with, I'm going to kind of put my shadow colors in for the Nuthatch, which is kind of like, painting along the bottom. I'm going to be using ultramarine blue as my shadow color, and possibly.
And for those new people, that's a mighty fine paint set. Who makes that?
This is a Schmincke's full pan watercolor set. It's no liquid, it's just pure color. And it costs a little bit of money, but they will last forever. It's amazing how long a set like this will last you, because there's that much more color than filler. So it really is a great set.
Very misleading when you first look at it and you see these little palettes of color.
Yeah.
How much is actually there?
Yeah, it is incredible, the amount of pigment that's in there, because they actually triple grind the pigments and lay it in layers. It's just, they really take care of you.
Real quick before you get started, still, that looks like a finer tip brush than part 1 and part 2.
What?
Is that still a little Cornell?
It is a little Cornell. It's just a little smaller brush. It's a number 2. I tend not to use really small brushes. I just happen to have this one. I like to go really no lower than a 4, because it leaves enough paint in the brush, so that you can get some work done. When the brush gets too small, you're constantly like going back to the pan, So, but for this one, I lost my number 4. Okay, so I need to get one. But this 2 will do. So.
And that looks like a Arches 140-pound cold press paper, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct. My favorite. I love Arches is for fine artists. They're for beginning artists. It's the most forgiving paper. You can abuse it the most. You can scrub it up. You can do a lot of work with this paper. I can't stress enough how many people probably quit watercolors because their paper wasn't good enough, and they give up, and because it all just becomes mush or mud, or it lifts. This paper is just an incredible. I've been using it for 30 years. I don't get tired of this. I know what I get every time too. There's a wonderful consistency to this company's work. Been around since I believe 1492. I think they actually stamp it into the paper, so they are proud. And French. They are proud and French. How's that?
And if for any reason you miss any of the materials or the colors he's using at any certain point, there's a link in the description that has everything listed, the who's, the what's, the where's, and how you can buy them. And if you use the links, it's greatly appreciated. You won't pay any extra, but we get a little commission. So thank you.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that too.
Now paint the bird.
I am. At this point, I have been using ultramarine blue to kind of give a little bit of color, a little bit of shadow color to the bottom of the bird, to the base of the bird. How's that? And now I've mixed a little bit of burnt sienna into the ultramarine blue, so that I can get just a slightly grayer blue.
Love me a good game of base bird.
Yeah, not so happy, not so bright. So because it is. I'm trying to get a wee bit of shadow under here. So, all right, very good. Now, I think you'll notice also, this is all going to be fairly detailed. For the most part, I probably am not going to be wetting it very much. Just to kind of give you an idea, what I'll be doing is probably applying the paint. And then while it's damp, if it needs to be softened, I'll take a little bit of water and I will then soften what I've put down, okay? So this kind of technique, or basically, you have to be quick. You don't let it set up too hard. You don't do a bunch of it and then try to soften it up. You put the paint down, you wait a second, then you soften it with a little bit of water. So like I said, you don't want to, if you wait too long, it'll be dry, and that creates a whole different issue. So I'm also, if you'll note, putting a little bit of shadow under his wings. So at this point, I'm now going to start adding the actual bird color. So I'm going to add a little bit of the blue-gray to his back end, where he has a little bit kind of hanging out. That just sounds wrong, I know. Don't worry.
And if you're curious, Keith looking off screen, he does have a photo for reference for the color, the patterns. You know, there's nothing wrong with having something to refer to.
In fact,
to make it look more realistic.
In fact, I insist. Yeah. You know, you're not making up birds. You're painting a nuthatch. Get a picture of a nuthatch, or you know, I actually have we're going to have a black and white.
We will have the pencil sketch available for you to download as a PDF and a JPEG if you would like to paint your own exact version of this bird on a tree with a sky. We'd love to see what you come up with.
Yep. The thing is, you know, some people are painters and some people are not drawers. So,
and we'll be doing a full video in the future of how to transfer a drawing or a photograph to watercolor paper as your base, your starting point.
Yes.
Because we don't expect you to know how to draw a nuthatch from scratch or a particular scene in general. If you can, great. And that's awesome. But not always can we replicate every thing on the planet just by memory.
Yeah. In fact, don't use your memory. I am very big on that. You know, I believe in looking at, you know, unless you're doing some wonderful imaginary thing from Harry Potter and the amazing world of fantastic creatures, find an image. I mean, you know, the internet has made it so fun. You can get and this is what I do literally, is I'll download 5, 6, 7 different images of a nuthatch, and I will kind of choose what I want to do. I can see it from every angle. So it's really a wonderful medium for you know, getting information. It's kind of funny. I used to go to the library every week and get just tons of books looking for subject matter, because, you know, the birds do not sit right there in front of me unless they're on my bird feeder. This one actually will sit in front of me. So, but a lot of times it is, you know, how often are you going to get a good shot of a bald eagle or an osprey or, you know, something, you know, fantastic. So, you know, you use the reference, get the reference. It's a wonderful thing. All right. I don't know if you noticed. Sorry, I've been babbling. I have applied a little bit of the burnt sienna. There's they do have like little streaks of brown towards the backside of their backside. How's that? The backside of their backside of their bottom. All right, sorry.
Back to the bottom.
Yeah. All right. So I'm adding just a little bit of that color. So now we've got the gray, we got the brown, we got the base of this bird going. I'm going to come up around his cheeks. And I'm going to add just a little more. Now the cheeks are basically white, but we don't want to leave it pure white. So I've got, once again, my very sharp brush. I say sharp, I mean pointy. I'm taking a little bit of the gray, and I'm just, kind of stroking a few little, feathers in, very light. Now, if it seems a little too drawn, you take a little bit of water and soften it up just a little bit. Now, while it's moist, I might even add just a touch of that burnt sienna very softly, right along the base here. Very soft though. So good. All right. Excuse me. All right. Now, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start putting in his main color on the top. Now, these feathers are kind of on his back. We're not to the flight feathers yet, or to the flight feathers, basically. So, once again, I'm kind of mixing the burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue to get kind of a light, pretty gray, okay? And I'm going to actually add a little more blue to it. There we go. All right. Alrighty then. Okay, so I'm going to start with his back, and we'll go from there. And we'll build the feathers as we go. So again, these are not like, these are kind of like loose, fluffy feathers that just kind of lay on the back. So I don't want to see any definite feather. I want to see kind of a like thin lines that kind of blend together. If you'll notice, on each side, I'm taking my fine lines and I'm kind of bringing it into the white so that the white face feathers are actually kind of poking up. There we go. All right, down, down, down. And now I'm going to go ahead, do his back. We're just going to hit it with color. I think we should be fine now. All right. Now I added a little water. The reason I did that is that I'm actually, once again, kind of pushing what paint is on the paper. I'm pushing it up to the edges of my feathers that I've laid down, and it kind of sharpens them a little bit, gives them a sharp edge. I kind of like that. All right, so at this point, I'm going to let that kind of set up because for right now, I can go to the back of the bird and kind of do his tail feathers. What I'm trying to do is paint where I'm, where the paint is drying. I'm trying to find other places to paint. So as long as I can keep doing that, I will. All right, without being confusing, I hope. All right, so I got kind of some of his tail in. I leave a little bit of white around the edges. They got a little bit of white on the tips of their tail feathers there. So I'm going to leave that alone. This is looking good. I'm going to add, I think, a little more gray down in here. And this is kind of where the shoulder of this bird is, okay? And then the rest of this comes down to that white under his neck. All right, so I think I might be Might be dry enough. All right. Once again, let's give this a try. I am going to start with they're not the flight feathers, but they kind of, I don't know the technical term, but they kind of all line up in a row here. You know, it's part of the wing, but it's not the long feathers that, but right now, as you can see, I leave just a little touch of white between the feathers so that they show up. So each one is kind of individual. Now, I might fill it in with a little color later, but for right now, this makes it easy to see that they are separate by just leaving that little bit of white. Okay. All right, so again, I'm going to let that dry. If this is dry up here, and it is, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do his head crest. It's black, or I'm going to use the indigo because I like indigo, which is a very blue-black. And I think it's shinier and prettier than just plain black. I can't stress enough trying to find the more vibrant colors to create anything in watercolors. I don't use white. I don't use black. They just, to me, they either dull or flatten your watercolor. So at this point, I'm doing his head crest. That kind of goes down his back a little bit.
I would like in a future episode maybe to do a test, because I noticed Schminke's offers quite a variety of different blacks.
Yeah.
Just to see what the actual difference between
different companies.
Well, no, even just in Schminke's, what's the black look like versus using a dark indigo versus mixing your own reddish black, mixing your own greenish black, just so people can see the application and why your personal preference.
That I hear you. And this is what I'm saying is my personal preference. This isn't, written in law or anything. It's just that this is what I recommend to my students. I want to see something a little more, a little fluffier, a little vibrant.
And if you have any suggestions, tell us, and maybe we'll try them in a future video.
Yeah.
Because he's still open to learning. He's not that old of a dog that he can't.
No, I'm not open.
Tricks.
Just like Mark hasn't closed down yet, so.
And I say what goes.
Yeah, and he's in charge of the camera. It's his camera. He'll go home. So, all right. So, here it is.
Wait, I'm going to have to reset in a minute.
Oh, okay.
So
give me 1 second. I am going to just kind of fill this in with a little darker. You'll notice the fine lines. I try to make the feathers kind of, make them feathery. All right, that's about time to quit, right? And I got to let this dry anyway. So we're going to pause. I'm going to let this dry, and when we come back, we'll finish this guy up. I let everything dry up. I'm back. I'm ready to start again. So I'm going to put a little color into the wings now. We're into the flight feathers. So it's kind of like the top feathers are cover feathers. I'm not sure what I'd call them. Are the same blue as everything else. Okay. I'm gonna just put that in. And then the other feathers are black. That's right. Just like his head. So now for these, I'm going to be trying like heck. What? Trying like heck to leave a little bit of white between each feather. Now, if you ain't got a steady hand, just try. So
What's an option if you accidentally bleed into the other ones because you don't have a steady hand?
I wouldn't worry about it. What I would do is when it dries, just try to make the line that you did have a little bit, just a little bit, darker above the section, that bled. I don't even know if that makes sense. That don't make no sense.
Okay,
Anyway.
So if I'm blue on blue and I have the white separation, great. If that top blue bleeds into the lower blue, then just try to make that top blue a little bit of shade darker so that the defining.
Yeah, hopefully the feathers will be defined. Okay.
Or you could create a shadow on the lower half.
Yes.
Using a complementary color, which we cover in a previous video.
For $8.95, no, it's on there. Go look for it. Discussing complementary colors. All right, so
not disgusting complementary. No.
We're trying. We're trying to teach. Trying the key phrase. All right. So I have now kind of laid out the darker flight feathers. Here's the thing. This is kind of funny. I'm not going to leave these lines white. What I'm going to do is put just a very light coat of a blue over top of them, and that'll kind of soften it up a little bit. So if the little bit of the white gets knocked out, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. All right. So at this point, I am now going to. Oh, it's still wet. All right, I can't do what I wanted to do there, so I am going to, where can I go? The other side. So these other feathers are now coming, from the other side of the body. So let's put these in real quick. Again, I'm just leaving a little bit of a white line, just so everything kind of separates and you'll be able to see individual feathers.
This is still a dry brush, right?
Yep.
No water on the paper.
This whole bird has been pretty much a dry brush project. Just you're working small. There ain't a lot of, you're not laying down a whole lot of color. So also if it's wet, it'll bleed all over. And you won't get the detail that we're trying to achieve here. So, work and dry is the secret here of this particular, these smaller birds like this. So, all right, so those come down, and I'm just going to finish this out a little bit. All right, now I'm going to darken these tail feathers out, separate them a little bit. All right. All right, now for the pizza resistance, I will be adding one more color to the blue on these birds. They have just a little bit of cerulean blue to their feathers. Feathers as they turn and move, they're kind of iridescent, so they do have different, they can kind of change colors a little bit as the light hits them. So that's kind of what we're going to be doing, is adding just a little bit of the cerulean blue to kind of give them a little more iridescence. So right now I'm making, I'm separating these, that block of feathers. like I said, don't worry about it if you don't get it exactly exact. See, mine bled a little bit too. I don't even worry about it. The eye will kind of fill it in for you and will help you. Also, as you step away from something, like I said, all that detail may disappear on you anyway. So don't worry. Be happy. All right. So at this point, I'm going to take a little bit of wash to his cheeks. Going with the ultramarine blue, just give it a little bit of shadow. And the beak, again, I'm going to make a kind of a grayish blue beak using the burnt sienna and the ultramarine blue. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take off my glasses. No. And I'm just going to very carefully create a very sharp beak with a little bit of reflection in the beak. So I'm going to do the top to the, basically to the mouth, where it separates, the top from the bottom. And we want it to be dark enough to be seen,
but not heard.
Right. I don't even know what noise these guys make. They tend to, they're all around my house. There's tons of them. They love the feeder. I don't think I've ever heard them. I'm sure there's an app for that, though. The Song of the Nuthatch. Gather round. Okay, let it go. All right. All right. So
I'd find it and play it, but I'd probably get a copyright strike.
Yeah, exactly. Mr. Audubon knocking on your door.
You don't own the rights to that Nuthatch sound.
I can't believe you did that. I think you're disrespecting the nuthatch. All right, so the base of the beak, a little bit darker on the bottom. Okay, I think I got it. Whee! And then I'm going to add a very bit of soft grayish brown just to kind of finish the bottom of the beak so you can kind of see where it is. All right. So I put a fine line and then I just kind of wet up from the fine line. There, it kind of shows up. All right, now the fun part. I get out my indigo and I get it out and it's fairly dark, okay? So here's one of the things about eyes. Don't ever forget, okay? That is, you put the highlight in. There's a little white dot. You better make sure it's in there because without that little white dot, the eye is no longer reflective. The reason the little white dot's there is because it's wet. So it kind of reflects. If you don't have that white dot, I swear to God, the eye looks dead. So this is really, really important. Okay, so I got mine in.
Do you have any secrets of putting the dot back in if you happen to?
As a matter of fact, I do. You get out your X-Acto knife. And because this is a good paper that could actually handle it, you scrape out a white spot. It works. And I've done it. I've screwed up. I've sneezed, and obliterated the little white spot. So yeah, X-Acto blade works great. Now, what I'm doing now is I'm putting it it's still damp. The eye is still damp. Putting a very dark edge to the top, and I'm going around the white part of the, that highlight. And now I'm just going to take my damp brush. I kind of dried it a little bit. I'm just going to softly blend that down so that it's very dark on top, a little bit lighter on the bottom. And that kind of helps create a three-dimensional effect like the eye is round. And it really helps bring the eye alive. It's alive. So at this point, I'm coming in. I'm going to add around the eye. There's, you know, some kind of a little bit of feathers, a little bit of, you know, shorter feathers. I'm trying to use browns. I've already used blues, so now I'm kind of using a grayer just to kind of break it up. So it has a, if you know, vary the color, you can get some very nice effects, especially when you step back. Everything kind of blends together anyway, and it really creates like more color than you know, than just plain gray as a shadow. I've got a bit of a brownish gray. I got a bit of a bluish gray. All right, so I think my face is actually, not my face, is actually pretty close to being done. I'm just going to add maybe again, maybe just a little more fine line work under his chin there to kind of give it the feeling of shadow. I like it. I like it. All right. See how I blend it again, kind of soften it up. All right. I'm going to finish up the bird. Most of it's going to be black. Well, indigo, but black. You know what I mean. All right. So there's a tiny little flat feather down here. I don't understand why it's darker than the ones next to it. Now the feathers, those secondary feathers, these kind of shorter ones, actually have kind of like a dark center. So that's what I'm putting in now. 1, 2, 3. This one shows up a little bit. It's a little bigger. And then this one again. So they get kind of buried under those smaller feathers in front here. So anyway. So I'm going to basically just put some fine feather line in here. Kind of separating them a little bit. This will be just blue. Okay. Now, once again, a little more indigo, a little more brown, and these are the darker flight feathers again. All right, where are we at? Okay, so these are, I painted them blue, but a few of these should have been black, so that's what I'm doing. I'm adding my black. Okay. Now, it's a little bit of shadow under these tail feathers. So now we're kind of getting down to very small details, very small little feathers, dark feathers here and there. For example, these little guys. Cool. And sometimes you just got to hit them twice. Now, a little bit of shadow under the flight feathers. So where I had the white lines, I'm making just a little bit of a thin blue line shadow under each one of those little white lines, kind of separating the feathers a little bit. Over here, we're going to kind of divide these a little bit. All right. Pardon me as I fall off camera. All right, I'm just trying to see what's left here. This looks okay. I am going to, at this point, maybe add a little more color to the beak. Top, just the top. Just so it has a little more. There we go. I like that. And last but not least, a foot. So I kind of do them in segments. They kind of are in segments. But what I'll do is I'll do the main block of it, and then I'll just kind of soften it with a little bit of water so that it kind of, all blends together. Right now it looks like black and white socks. I think. All right, so I'm just finishing up the foot. So I've added, these very, dark segments. But now what I'm going to do is just kind of soften it a little bit while they're wet, so you can kind of still see the segments, but it's not like a centipede. They do kind of blend together. All right, so all right, a couple of these back feathers are black, so let's just kind of add that in. And basically that's it for the bird. Now I might go in and fuss with it a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry, I did forget to add one color. Over the white, you'll see I'll blend a little bit of the color over the black. I'm just going to take a little bit of gray and I'm just going to soften so those white lines are no longer white. They're still there, but they're no longer white. Okay, so, all right, now, if you want, sometimes I will go back in, maybe add a little more dark here and there, but for this one, see what I mean? This is kind of fun. You add these little dark lines here and there, and it just helps pop the tree out even more. So, but I think we're going to call this one quits. Mark said I get to eat today.
I'll push him up.
If I get done. If I get done. Anyway, thanks for watching. Mark has a couple things he wants to say.
So in the description below, there's a link, takes you to Keith's website. Check it out. But more importantly, There's a description and list of all the materials used in this painting, links to where you can purchase them. There's also going to be a link to download the initial pencil sketch of this bird on the tree, so you can use that as a starting off point for painting your own. Leave us a comment below with any questions, comments. If you have any links to your own work, we'd love to see it. And subscribe to the channel, because we're going to be putting out a lot more content more often, and we wouldn't want you to miss anything. So thanks, and we will see you soon.
All right. Thank you, Mark. We'll be back. Take care.